Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the Laces Out podcast. But it's the Laces Out podcast with a difference. My co-host is unavailable. He is unwell, and because of that, was unable to attend the podcast. However, I lined up a very special guest for this week. Very special guest. So, to not squander the guest, I upgraded the guest to guest/co-host duties. This has never been done before, I don't think. And it absolutely paid off. It delivered. It was fantastic. The only way you're going to find out if that is true is by either watching or listening. Before we start, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Obviously, share the podcast around. If you've got an NFL fan in your life, send this podcast to them as an example of a fantastic podcast. Right. Strap in for this one, kids. It's going to be a corker. Here we go. This is CookieCast. Laces Out.
Well, look at this. Oh, I've got chills. I've got chills. Chill bumps if we were in America. At this point in time, if you're listening, you're like, I don't know what he's talking about. So, not fair on the listening audience. If you're watching on YouTube, head scratcher, I know. So, this is not the Formula One podcast. This is not a Darkest Timeline, and it absolutely is not a bullshit cast, but look out for that bad boy coming down the pipe. This is the NFL podcast, and I know what you're thinking. All has changed. That's right. Because sometimes I get a guest. We know this. This season, not been great. But sometimes I get a guest of such caliber that it pushes the other co-host out of the podcast to make room. So this week's guest and, dare I say, co-host for the week, Tony T-Dog Rawson. How are you, sir?
Not so bad. Thank you for having me.
Literally anytime. It's my intention to get you on every podcast that
I've done it. I took the challenge, and I'm here today, filling in for injured parties, busy parties, anniversary parties. So yeah, I'm here.
Ultimately, when somebody steps up, whatever it is, any walk in life, if you step up, hero status immediately, and it can only get better from there. So
exactly.
We're dealing with a hero, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're talking about here. So it is the NFL podcast. Fair to say, not your top subject of expertise.
Absolutely not. But I've done a bit of reading.
That is fine.
I've done a bit of reading. But you may have to educate me along the way.
And this is part of it. Ultimately, way back when, there was a point in time where any NFL fan was not an NFL fan. And they went, why do they do that like that? And why, when they kick it that way, well, what happens if that happens? And then you just build on that knowledge and go forward. I believe more recently you have taken a team as your designated team.
I chose the Miami Dolphins. However, after reading into the stats and a little bit of the stories this season, that may have been a grave error. That may go down with my other picks in the previous seasons where I chose the Cleveland Browns and they were absolute dog shit. They were brown. They lived up to their name. And then other seasons, what else did I pick? I remember. But yeah, I picked Miami, and after revising heavily for this podcast and reading round, I deeply regret that. But you'll have to listen to my picks and see what I've picked for MVP and Super Bowl. So see what you think.
I don't dislike the Miami Dolphins pick. I think the Miami Dolphins have, if you look at the last 3 seasons, they've probably been at their absolute best for a while. They have hit what is a truly unfortunate situation where their quarterback is, when he's on his tip-top game, he is absolutely superb. He's a little injury prone and does tend to lead with his head in 90% of situations, and has had some horrific concussions, like the kind of stuff you just don't want to see. So they are a team where when everything's working, they are a force to be reckoned with. But when that quarterback goes out of action, you can basically put them off to one side, and it's unfortunate to see, because you want a team to be able to survive even if some of the cogs aren't quite working. So I like it as a pick. When I heard it a few weeks back, I was like, good pick, good shout. So I wouldn't feel like, it's like anything.
I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, Tua's back, and they're doing all right. I have Tua in my fantasy team. That's not why they're doing as bad. My fantasy team is a curse on any NFL team. Anyway, you are a new guest. Last week we had one of your co-hosts, Mr. Mark Wilson. Always an absolute delight to get involved with the Formula One boys. And as you are a new guest, you may know this. You are required to deliver a series of season-long predictions. Those predictions are the 2 teams you think will go to this year's Super Bowl, the winner of those 2 teams, the Super Bowl MVP, and the season-long MVP. So, which 2 teams will go to the Super Bowl this year, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I think the Kansas City Chiefs will make the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Because Patrick Mahomes is an absolute powerhouse. I think he's the face at the minute. And it sounds like they're going to get there. They're going to get there. However,
it's basically raining in the stars at this point. So.
I think it was the Bills? It might have been the Bills, or somebody looked very good in this recent game week.
Yes, we will cover the Bills Chiefs game shortly, because a little bit of a season upset for the Chiefs. Not to foreshadow anything. So the Chiefs are locked in.
The Chiefs are locked in, and then this is where it gets tasty, because looking around, I think potentially, and it's out of 2 teams here, but I'm going to pick one. But I'm going to explain first. The first one was the 49ers, because they've come so close. They're a very good team, well-rounded team, and it's Mark's team, and that would really piss off Mark if I picked them, and it would curse that team immensely, and it would make for great entertainment. But reading around, I don't think I'm going to pick him. I'm going to go with, and this is a long shot because I only get one chance to do this, and it may be the last chance I ever get to do this. So I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions.
The entire time I'm like, say the Detroit Lions. Say the Detroit Lions. Come on, bring it home for us, Tony. This is the one. So I have said in the past, if I could take my Super Bowl prediction again, that is the absolute pick for me. Now, do I think the Lions are going to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl? Absolutely not. Do I think the Lions are good enough to get to the Super Bowl this season? Absolutely. They look insane this season. I'm pretty sure, having skimmed this week's stats, the Lions are featured a few times. They had an interesting game at the weekend. Let's just put it that way. It is.
They did run over a team, didn't they, this weekend, and look very good. So I thought I'll read around this, and yeah,
the phrase "worst defeat in team history," I believe, is used to describe that game. Yeah, that is an absolute corker of a pick. If I could take my pick back, because I believe my season-long pick is your other option, the Chiefs versus the 49ers. If I could take it back, it would be the Chiefs versus the Lions.
Plus, it would be even better to piss. It would be even better to piss Mark off even more if the Lions beat the 49ers to make it to the Super Bowl. That would be insane, wouldn't it?
I'm not sure if you ever saw it, but I think it was last season. Mark and James both came on to do an NFL podcast, and I think James's one objective for that podcast was solely to piss Mark off. So picked the opposite of every single pick that Mark had. And I think he ended up getting a clean sweep for the week. He got every single one right. And we were like, James won the predictions last week, purely picking the opposite. It was mental. He got a point for the guess for the week. It was just proper crazy. So I'm not saying it's a reason to pick a particular way, but yeah.
Oh, it is.
I imagine in a couple of days, Mark's sitting at home listening to this, being like, "I'm gonna murder these two."
Well, you should have been here to defend yourself, Mark. You should have been here to defend yourself.
He could have come on to protect everybody, including himself. I believe he is also unavailable at this point in time. We've all got commitments in life, unfortunately.
Allegedly.
So, and also,
He's running. That's what he does.
I've heard that he does the occasional run now and then.
Oh, he's always running. Always.
So, what is a fantastic pick? If I had my pick again, it would be the pick. So, Super Bowl MVP.
Difficult because it's Patrick again, isn't it? But again, you get one shot at this. So I'm going to go for the other guy, Jared Goff.
Beautiful. Absolutely.
I'm going, so you kind of feel where I'm going now. Kind of going all in on Detroit.
Are we thinking that Detroit is going to take the Super Bowl win?
Is it the first ever potentially as well? I don't know. I don't know. But that's my case. I don't know what anybody else has said, but that is to spice it up. Why not?
So, are you taking the Lions to win the Super Bowl this year?
Yes, of course.
It's the pick we all want to see. Honestly, at this point in time, if the Detroit Lions enter this year's Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs and somebody put a camera in my house, you will find me fully decked out from head to feet in Detroit Lions colours. Jersey, scarf, hat. I'm going to have to find some sort of shoe that I can get. It's just going to be full-blown Lions household on that day. Okay, so we've got our Super Bowl teams, we've got our winning team, and we've got our MVP. Lastly, and absolutely not least, your season-long MVP.
This is hard, very hard.
Yeah.
Because Mahomes again. But Josh Allen looked incredible. Very good. And the highlight I saw of him scoring that touchdown looked amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's Jared again. Could he get the clean sweep? Don't know. Really stuck on this one. But I think I'm gonna go Mahomes. Play it safe. Play it safe. Play it safe.
Lovely stuff. So that is your season-long pick locked in. We may revisit it at another point in time. What we've had in the past is, if you could have your pick over again, what would it be at this stage of the season? Going into week one, like obviously me and Paul predict before we won, we predict in pre-season. So to take I think we'll see the same Super Bowl as last year, is not the worst pick pre-season. 11 weeks later, you kind of want your picks back. So we do tend to do we're halfway through the season. What do we think now? We're 2/3 of the way through the season. So we may see another opportunity to repick. And obviously, you'd be invited to do the same. But at this stage of the season, it is a solid pick. So now we have to get down to the business. And the business is where I now have to muddle through the job that Paul normally does as best I can. So Paul has very kindly sent me all of the things that I need. But, I've got the donkey brain situation. So here we go. Last week's predictions. As I said, Mark was our guest predictor. And it didn't go too badly for Mark, because in third place, with 8 out of 14 correct picks, it's this guy right here. I got 8 of 14.
Well done.
Yeah, okay. So often in this situation, it's easier to go through the teams that I didn't get. I didn't get the Jets beating the Colts. I didn't get the Falcons beating the Broncos. The 49ers beating the Seahawks. I did pick the Chiefs to beat the Bills. That was a silly maneuver. The Bengals to beat the Chargers. Oops. Sorry. I went with the Ravens to beat the Steelers, and that's a big fat no on that one. In second place for the week, our lovely guest, Mark, with 1 more than me, 9 out of 14. He was let down by the Ravens not beating the Steelers, the Falcons not beating the Broncos, the 49ers not beating the Seahawks, and the Bengals not beating the Chargers. He's not here. Wow. And he's had a little too many clean sweeps this season. So, not going to lie, kind of glad to see that he didn't get a clean sweep this week. However, he was 1 away with 13 out of 14 picks. And our winner for the week, Mr. Paul Williams, the only team that let him down were the Jets. Been letting everybody down since the dawn of time. Let me. The teams that were on bye were the Cardinals, the Panthers, the Giants, and the Buccaneers, and I can't say anybody really missed most of them. Paul moves to 7 points for the season, leaving me on 4 with the all-important asterisk. The guest on 0, which is unusual at this stage of the season. Obviously, Mark could have a point for beating me, but, with 8 out of 14, not a difficult one. Side bet action, and we'll be doing something interesting with this week's side bet. Side bet action for week 11. I was let down, you'll enjoy this, by the 49ers. But that was the only team I was let down by. I picked the Texans to beat the Cowboys, which you don't want to be that guy, but that was a bit of a no-brainer. I had the Vikings beating the Titans and the Rams. You can never see it when you need it. Where is it? The Rams beating the Patriots. Some would say a no-brainer. That has put me on 31 points for the season for the side bet. Likewise, Paul was also let down by a team, and again, it was the same team that let him down in his predictions. The Jets let him down. He got the Lions, Dolphins, and Packers all correct, though, putting him on 34 points for the season on the side bet. Interesting there. We've had this situation before where not that much in this. Essentially, Paul could get all of his picks wrong in a week, and I could get a clean sweep, and it would literally flip that score. All to play for.
Wow.
Obviously, he's not here this week, so... we will jump to that a little later. We have all the games to pick, although heavy on the buys this week. Cyber action will be tasty. But before that, I'd like to do a little something on the podcast called the Week 11 Stats. Now then, the stats mistress, she went out, she got us some stats. She spoke to her guy over the pond, Nate Davis of USA Today, and he delivered the goods. She took those goods, she put them through the condensing machine and produced the absolute cream of the stat crop. I have shared a number of those stats with Tony, and we're going to see how Tony gets on reading through some stats. But first, let's see how I get through reading through some stats, because it's not my strongest point. So these are the Week 11 stats for the 2024/25 season, brought to us by the Stats Mistress and brought to her by Nate of USA Today. Number 1. No bigger matchup thus far in this regular season than the one between Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills, the latter handing the former their first loss of the 2024 campaign. Now only a half game behind Kansas City in the overall AFC standing, the Bills are very legitimate threats to win home field advantage. A podcast that I listened to, the host of the podcast talks at length about home field advantage and how it makes no difference. They are obviously talking about basketball in that scenario, whereas in American football, it really does play a massive part. Number 2. Buffalo's victory was secured thanks to quarterback Josh Allen's highlight reel 26-yard touchdown run with little more than 2 minutes to play. He may not finish with stats as gaudy as Baltimore Ravens counterpart Lamar Jackson, but Allen's success with a team seemingly depleted in the offseason should put him squarely in the conversation for his first MVP award. 3.
I touched on it.
You did. You absolutely did. Number 3, just a little one. In their last 7 meetings with the Chiefs, the Bills have won all 4 regular season matchups, but dropped all 3 in the playoffs. And that's the whole thing. The whole thing that is always, again, written in the stars. You can beat the Chiefs in the regular season because it almost doesn't matter. When it comes to crunch time in the playoffs and you don't, that it really makes the difference. 4, admit the spirited and smash-mouth rivalry that exists between the Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Could the difference between them in the 2024 season be their kickers? Boswell scored all of Pittsburgh's points on Sunday. On Sunday's 18-16 win, 3 of his field goals from 50-plus yards, including a 57-yarder. Meanwhile, Baltimore's Justin Tucker missed from 47 and 50 yards, effectively costing his team the win. I've seen a lot of stuff recently. Justin Tucker was like nothing anybody had ever seen as far as kickers were concerned. He had this insane streak. I think it was over 50 field goals made and all of this. Every single thing I've seen so far this season is suggesting that this is probably his last season. Has had an amazing career, but whereas a 47 and a 50 yarder would have been absolutely, he could have done it with his eyes closed. What we're seeing now is these distances and conditions are not really coming off for him. Number 5, meanwhile, Boswell has now hit 29 of his 30 field goal tries in 2024, including all 20 inside 50 yards. Yes, he's 9 of 10 beyond. He has at least 4 field goals in 4 games this season, and Sunday was the second time he posted a six-pack for all of Pittsburgh's Iron City points. Yep, good job you've got it. It's a good job you've got a kicker to score all of your points in that game. Number 6, Baltimore's offense, which entered the game comparing favorably to the best units in league history, at least by the numbers, scored its fewest points of the season and also posted its fewest yards at 329. My final stat of these is number 7. Appears the Indianapolis Colts turned back to quarterback Anthony Richardson just in time. After a 2-game benching, his 4-yard touchdown run in the final minute kept Indy's playoff hopes alive with a 28-27 win. Richardson's 106.5 passer rating Sunday was his best in a full NFL game, and he matched his career high by accounting for 3 touchdowns, 1 passing and 2 rushing. That is my set of the stats. So, Tony, I invite you to see how you get on with the stats I have sent through to you. Here we go.
Well, here we go. The Seattle Seahawks ambushed the team they've come to dislike the most in recent years, beating the San Francisco 49ers 2017 in Silicon Valley, and technically dropping the Niners into last place in the NFC West. So my other notes say, they edged out a tight win with Geno Smith?
Geno Smith,
finding success late in the game. San Francisco's offense was slowed by turnovers and penalties, contributing to their loss. Next up, the Detroit Lions 52-6 obliteration of the Jacksonville Jaguars is about as bad as the beatdown as you'll see in NFL. And it was the highlights were not pretty. And if you're a Jaguars fan, I'll be honest, they looked real shit. I'm going to be honest there. I've seen few NFL games. I've been to none, but hopefully one day. And even I knew they looked a bit shit. And it was the worst defeat in the Jags' 30 season history. The Lions had 475 yards more than Jacksonville. Detroit scored a touchdown on each of its first 7 possessions, and that may have really, what's the word, swayed me in my decision making.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
We will see if this continues. Now 9-1, the Lions are off to the best start since going 10-0 in 1934. Their first year in Detroit after being born as a Portsmouth Spartans in 1930. Bloody hell.
Yeah.
Detroit quarterback Jared Goff had a 158.3 passer rating after completing 24 of 29 throws for 412 yards and 4 touchdowns. It was only the second perfect rating of Goff's 9-year career, but the third time he eclipsed 150 in the past 7 games.
The man is on actual fire at this point in time. He is just crushing it.
They're dominated.
Yeah,
scored touchdowns. First 7 drives. That's not been achieved since 2007. No. He threw 4 touchdowns. Yeah, I mean, this guy is
Super Bowl material, some might say.
But like you say, against a poor side on week 11, can that continue? Something might happen to him. Something might happen to the team.
Yeah.
And can he do it when it really counts?
Yeah, exactly. That's absolutely
what makes stars in the NFL.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It's a nice story, though, and Americans love a story. So we move on. The Washington Commanders. Now, I'm sorry if I have missed something here, but were the Washington Commanders called something else?
Yeah, they were called the Washington Redskins, but you're not allowed to say that anymore.
Okay, because I'm sure to God I.
Bearing in mind that in this season there has been a lot of call for A, them to revert back to being called Washington Redskins, or B, for them to change their name again because people really can't get on board with the Washington Commanders. A lot of people point out that what does it actually mean? There's been all sorts of stuff in this season where they're like, you need to change the name to something that makes sense for a start if you're not going to go back to the Redskins. I think there's this illusion or this thought and feeling around the fact that the Redskins is derogatory, but it turned out that nobody who might be offended by it is offended by it, I believe, allegedly. So yes, there's a lot of call for them trying to change the name again, which I think everybody would agree is probably a good name. But like I say, people are asking them to go back to being the Redskins.
I mean, once you've changed, I agree changing it. Okay, this is the world we live in, but to go back,
yeah.
I mean, it might grow on people.
It was one of those things that there was like a lot of names flying around that people really liked. So when they went, right, today's the day to announce our new name, people were like, oh, it's going to be this, and that's a really good choice. Oh, it's going to be this, and it's going to be a good choice. And then they announced it, and they went, that's a terrible choice.
Oh, well. Right, well, it seems something of a foregone conclusion that Washington Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels will eventually be named the Offensive Rookie of the Year don't count out Denver Broncos quarterback Bo Nix just yet. In Sunday's 38-6 thrashing of the NFC South leading Atlanta Falcons, Nix eclipsed 300 passing yards for the first time this season and threw 4 touchdowns for the first time in an NFL game. Wow. Okay. Early days, but we will see. We will see what happens there for sure. I mean, to add to that game, Denver dominated Atlanta. Interesting. We'll see how that goes. And I think finally, I've got, is there an NFC Offensive Player of the Week award coming to New Orleans Saints? Taysom Hill. After he piled up 188 yards from scrimmage on 15 touches while scoring 3 touchdowns in a 35-14 blowout of the Cleveland Browns, which we've already, there's still, in my view, of the Brown nature. He even returned a kickoff 42 yards. So
he certainly did, and he notched 32 fantasy points while sitting on my bench.
Oh dear.
We need to predict some football games. However, technology is against us, unfortunately, and we are going to take a very small break. It won't affect anybody listening / watching. You might even get an advert. But we will return in a moment. And just like that, we are back. Absolutely no time at all passed. No time at all. We have been through last week's games. We've been through Tony's season-long picks, which were chef's kiss, and we've done the stats. That puts week 11 firmly in the history books for us as far as we're concerned. I need to claw back some stuff. A little peek behind the curtain. We did just have a small conversation offline about the side bet may suffer this week. Tony is being let down by technology. So I am going to help guide, but not guide too much. I'm going to give Tony all the information he needs to make his picks. Mr. Williams has sent me his picks. One thing I haven't done yet is check to see whether there is difference of opinion between mine and Paul, because we might need a tiebreaker. That might end up being the same for me and Tony, or Tony and Paul. We just don't know. But we're about to find out. Now, there will be a little bit of chopping and changing because, again, a little peek behind the curtain, something you may or may not know about the NFL podcast. Mine and Paul's list of games are never the same. I take it from ESPN. I'm not sure if Paul might use Sky Sports or BBC's, but I'm not sure. They're never listed the same, so it gets real confusing. And now I've got both in front of me. It's even worse. But what's lucky for everybody is this. The first game of the week is the same. It's the Steelers versus the Browns. Paul is in the book with the Steelers to beat the Browns. I'm in the book with the Steelers to beat the Browns. And here's how we're going to do this. Tony, do you think the 8-2 with a 93% pick Pittsburgh Steelers will beat the 2-8, 7% pick Cleveland Browns?
I think the Steelers will win because I'm with my guy Snoop Dogg on this. T-Dog, Snoop Dogg, Steelers to win. Easy.
Exceptional.
Easy. The Browns were very crap this week.
Yeah, it's not just this week. They're terrible. So now I have to monkey around here because the second game is not the same. So I have to go and find that it's here. Tony, do you think what is arguably the best team in the NFL at this point in time, the Kansas City Chiefs, who are, as we've already found out, 9-1 for the season, will beat what is arguably the worst team in the NFL this season and other seasons previously, the 3-7 with a 4% pick Carolina Panthers.
I think the Chiefs are going to win this.
Funny you say that, because not only do you think that, both me and Paul think the same. Shocker. Okay, we're looking at Vikings-Bears next. So I have to go off and find the Vikings-Bear game. Okay. I'm going to go with my pick on this one. I have picked the 8-2, 88% Minnesota Vikings to beat the 4-6, 12% pick Chicago Bears. I'm not alone in this one, because Paul has obviously seen that the Vikings are probably going to win this one and has also gone with the Vikings. Tony?
I'm going to go with Vikings. Go on. Vikings.
For a second there, I was like, wait, Tony's a secret Bears fan. And he's like, no, I can't do it. I've got to get in on that Bears action. Apparently not. Just to allude on this one, there is possibly one game this week that might be a coin flip. The season's pretty much locked in at this point, and it's become very apparent what's what with the team. For example, let's look at our next game. It's the Titans versus the Texans. Now, if I said to you that the Tennessee Titans were 2-8 and the Houston Texans are 7-4, if you need more information, 2% of people pick the Titans, 98% of people pick the Texans. Where would your pick be?
I mean, on that, it's got to be the Texans. Got to be. Surely.
You're right, because Paul and myself agree with you. I'm getting a tiebreaker vibe from this week's game. So let's talk about Lions and the Colts, as we spent a lot of time talking about the Lions in this week's stats. The Lions are very much looking like the Kansas City Chiefs. Certainly by the numbers, they are 9-1. They are going up against the 5-6 Indianapolis Colts. I have put the Lions down to win. Paul has put the Lions down to win. Tony, big Colts fan, yeah?
Absolutely not. Lions all the way, baby.
Yeah, baby. Okay, this is looking good. Patriots. Now, obviously, Tony, this is your team, so I can't imagine that I have to even ask if you're taking the 4-6 Dolphins.
Obviously, I'm taking the fins up, baby.
Fins up, baby. The Patriots would probably have trouble finding their way out of an open door at this point in time. We're all fins up here at Cookie Cast. Myself and Paul are with you and your team. Fins up, baby. Let's see what the Bucs can do in the Bucs-Giants game, which luckily for me is the next one on my screen. Another one of those where there's not a lot in it in this game. 4-6 Buccaneers going up against a 2-8 Giants. I think the 4% of people that have picked the Giants are 90% of the Giants fans, but even the diehards have probably seen the writing on the wall this season. What are we thinking here, Tony? Buccaneers or Giants?
I mean, I want to go different, just to be different, but I really want to stake my claim as well. So, yeah, it's going to have to be the Buccaneers.
Yeah, it's going to have to be the Buccaneers. Me and Paul agree with you. I will tell you here and now, there is a game this week that the numbers won't help you with. So you could hold out for that game and then make a certain podcast person happy or sad. Foreshadowing, maybe? We shall find out. So everybody's in on the Bucs. Let's talk Broncos. No, we're not going to talk Broncos. We're going to talk Cowboys Commanders. Oh, now we're starting to line up here. Obviously, we have spoken at length about the Commanders and their naming choices. The Dallas Cowboys have not delivered this season. They delivered $250 million to their quarterback's front door to have him do his usual and go out injured for the rest of the season. 3-7 for the Dallas Cowboys versus a surprising 7-4 Washington Commanders team. 93% have picked the Commanders. They were leading their division at a particular point in time. I have picked the Commanders. Paul has picked the Commanders. But I'm feeling that Tony's like, Jerry Jones ain't going to let this one go down. He's definitely bringing it back. He's going to bring that Cowboys team back to win.
Yeah, I've got a feeling here. I've got a feeling. I'm going to go Cowboys here. Okay, Cowboys.
Yes.
Cowboys. Come on. Cowboys.
I love the dedication.
If I get that right,
then you basically won the week. You will dominate taking the first point for the guest.
Come on, Cowboys. Come on.
Broncos Raiders is the next piece of business. Again, if you're going by the numbers, the 6-5 Broncos versus the 2-8 Las Vegas Raiders. 91% of people have picked the Broncos. No mathematician needed there. 9% of people have picked the Raiders. Paul is in on the Broncos this game. I am also in on the Broncos. Tony.
I'm going to go Broncos as well.
Yeah, as we covered in the stats, Broncos definitely seem to have found a good quarterback in Bo Nix. Seems to be doing good for the Broncos there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember when I said there was a game that you could potentially flip a coin on? Well, guess what? The 5-5 San Francisco 49ers take on the 7-3 Green Bay Packers. Now then, to upset the boat here, knowing my co-host and knowing that I don't want to use the word hatred, his strong dislike for the San Francisco 49ers, I thought I would sneak a point out from underneath him by taking the Green Bay Packers. And as it stands at the moment, that would have been a poor choice. I took the 49ers, knowing that Paul wouldn't. And no surprises, Paul took the Packers. So we are at this point divided. And at this point in the predictions, this would be the deciding game between me and Paul. Tony. Basically, it's Mark or not Mark. That's what we're at. So
I think the Packers are going to win.
Oh, he's gone that way. I love it. Ultimately, you're either going to make somebody happy or sad. And isn't that life?
Isn't that life?
Isn't that life?
Mark Wilkin is... No, you can be happy.
Now then.
Angry.
Hulk angry.
Majority. 90% of the time, I think.
An interesting one we've got here, because this is also a very close by the numbers game. The Arizona Cardinals, with their 6-4 record, take on Seattle Seahawks, who are 5-5. It's very much like the 49ers. And here's where it gets real tricky. This is a 50-50 game. 50% of the people have gone with the Cardinals. 50% of the people have gone with the Seahawks. However, if you need a little bit of help in this one, what I can tell you is at this point in time, 100% of the podcasts have gone with the Seahawks. Tony, join us or not?
I want to say Seahawks, but I want to be different.
He's playing for points, ladies and gents.
I want to be different.
Cardinals is not a bad shout. They are, by the numbers, the winning team here by one game, but still the winning team.
I'm not sure yet. Just will Kyler Murray, coming back from injury, play a part here? But the Seahawks, I did discuss about the Seahawks earlier on. I'm going to go Seahawks.
Love to see it. You are with us. We can all be disappointed together when they come. So we are down to the last two, and some would say a couple of no-brainers here. We've got the 8-2 Philadelphia Eagles going up against the 5-5 Los Angeles Rams. Not the best season for the Rams this season. I think 5-5 is probably about where you maybe expect them to be. Eagles doing well, 8-2. What I week in, week out keep referring to the Eagles as the team that are flying under the radar. Nobody's talking about the Eagles at this point in time. Nobody's talking about a team that are 8-2. It's all Lions, Chiefs. The Eagles will almost definitely be in the playoff picture. But whilst we're not talking about them, we don't have to worry about them, I think is the plan at the moment. So, Tony, 8-2 Eagles?
It's got to be Eagles. Eagles, surely.
You are not on your own, sir.
Good.
You join myself and Mr. Williams both with Eagles picks, and our final game is the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, this is an interesting one because you've got the 7-4 Baltimore Ravens going up against the 7-3 Los Angeles Chargers. 76% of people have gone with the Ravens. 24% of people have gone with the Chargers. I can tell you this much. I am with the majority in this. I have also gone with the Ravens. And I can also tell you, Paul is with me on this one. And the other 76% of people have picked it. Tony, Ravens, Chargers.
Ravens.
Beautiful stuff. Absolutely fantastic. Something I should have mentioned at the start, and I didn't. Terrible hosting job here. On bye this week are the Falcons, the Bills, the Bengals, the Jaguars, the Saints, and the Jets. Honestly, I imagine there are at least two of those teams that will be glad of a break from getting absolutely pummeled week in, week out. A couple of the other teams that are probably glad of a rest from defeat. Now then, what I have deduced from this is because of the 49ers Packers pick, myself and Paul will now be decided by one game because we have no need for tiebreaker because that is our tiebreaker. Tony, you have also gone with two different picks, meaning there is no need for a tiebreaker, which is fantastic because tiebreakers...
Cowboys. It's all about the Cowboys, guys.
It is all about the Cowboys. I'm desperately trying to work out a way that we can do a tiebreak. Not a tiebreak at all, a side bet.
A side bet.
The problem being is, with you not being able to see these games and the stat lines for these games, it'd be very difficult. Yeah. It might be one where you might have to skip obviously the tiebreaker's been between me and Paul. I did, if you'd have been able to see them, I was going to offer the opportunity for you to pick all 4 games straight off the bat, and then Paul can then have that opportunity to say, "I'll take it because you got all 4 right." I wonder if there's a way to pick out obvious teams, i.e., do you just take the Chiefs, the Lions, I don't know, the Steelers and the Vikings as your 4 picks? Because not only are they obvious picks, they are heavily dominant to then leave me to pick through, like, your 5 and 5 teams. I think, in the interest of fairness, I think we'll probably skip the side bet this week, as Paul is not here, and ultimately somebody will call me on fair play. So there we go. That is this. Honestly, Tony, you have done exceptionally well to work your way through a sport that it's not tip top of your list. You've got your team, and that's all that really matters. Fantastic. Adding to the stats. You didn't read the stats. You read the stats and added to them. That right there. Your Super Bowl is locked in. Feel free to come back in our pre-Super Bowl show and see how well your pick is lining up. Basically, I don't know if you are aware, as the season goes on, some Super Bowl picks get eliminated as teams get eliminated from regular season sometimes. Certainly playoffs, Super Bowl picks do get eliminated. It's often a case where people's picks are going into the Super Bowl with one team out of their picks, things like that. But
I mean, if the Lions get it from here, a legend is born.
You are more than welcome to come back. Honestly, at this point in time, I think what the world needs is for me and you to definitely, in the Formula One off season, start our previously mentioned one-on-one podcast. Mental health awareness week. And give the people what they want.
Give the people what they want.
People what they want. Honestly, I can't thank you enough. It takes a real man to step up when needed, and you stepped up when needed. So a big thank you to you. We send our well wishes to Mr. Williams. He still delivered on his picks, so that's the good stuff there. Big thank you to you. If you are new to the podcast and you tuned in and you're like, what's this situation? Do check out the Formula One podcast. Tony's there week in, week out, bringing fantastic Formula One content. Absolutely, hands down, one of the best podcasts on Podcast Network. It is absolutely the best Formula One podcast you will find, hands down. And check out, if you're in and around the area, check out some of the other podcasts we do. We've got football. Obviously, we're here doing the NFL. We've got the Formula One. And there's a wrestling podcast due next week, so check that one out. Again, thank you very much to you, Tony, for freeing up time to come and join me. Thank you to the lovely people for listening, watching, and being here. And that is it. Week 11 in the books. Week 12 is now technically in the book. And we shall catch you next time when hopefully I manage to do magic guest gettings. Until then, Patty buys.
See you soon.
So there you go. What do you think to that? Fantastic episode. I am sure you will agree. Massive thank you to Tony for joining me, picking up not only guest duties but co-host duties, and fantastic job he did too. I think we can all agree it's about time me and Tony get that Me and Tony podcast rocking. Big thank you for watching. Big thank you for listening. Big thank you for being here. Before you go, if you could do a couple of little things for us, like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a review where you can leave a review, and check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media links and an email button. That way you get in touch with us. That is it for this one. Till next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
How awesome is that? So awesome. You gotta like, share and subscribe.